Jason Wagner here. I am back. It is 2018, and as all the resolution people will say, new year, new me. Okay, not really. I'm not down with that. We were just talking about that resolution stuff earlier. It puts too much pressure on a nigga, man. I don't got time for them resolutions. But anyway, I know I took another hiatus, but everybody know who went to school. You know that should be just trying to take your whole life. That should be. I'll be closing my laptop and I just hear angels like singing a song. That's how glad I am to close my laptop. But anyway, I'm gonna get right into it because I don't want to keep the people waiting too long. Because as you know, I am a young people's champ and I'm here for you. But anyway, I thought about getting really kind of historical today because there's a guy that I've been wanting to talk about. Because I actually wanted to wait and see if more people would talk about him because I saw a couple of posts here and there on the gram, but you know, nobody actually really went into detail about this dude. But you know, I want to talk about a savage. Okay, a savage among savages. This dude made Hitler and Stalin look like fucking choir boys. Now, and we all know Hitler and Stalin and Mussolini, all these dudes were fucking crazy. They were fucking crazy. Call it like it is. And this dude made they crazy look like a mouse. Now, if any of y'all, let's hope some of the real ones picked out who I'm talking about by now. But if y'all don't know, I'm gonna tell you right now. We talking about King Leopold II of Belgium. Again, let me repeat it. King Leopold II of Belgium. This dude was crazy. Like, if there was a picture of crazy, psychotic, narcissistic, they need to put a picture of this dude in each one of those. This dude was so narcissistic, he hired Mark Twain, the author. We all know who Mark Twain, the author, is. Because Mark Twain died in what? Let me see right here. I got it right here. He died in 1910, and the king. It's called the King Leopold Soliloquy, and it was published in like 1905. So that means Mark Twain was a pretty old dude. I feel sorry for Mark Twain. I'm like, you had to go talk to this dude when you were old man. You could have been back with your woman having a little spliff, but no, you had to go talk to a psychotic, narcissistic murderer. That's what you had to spend your time doing that. But I'm glad you did because you gave me an insight into how crazy this motherfucker really was. Okay, but let's hop into it. See, King Leopold, you know, he wasn't king at first, but you know, his family was in the royal kingdom in Belgium or whatever, and when he first became when he first took the throne in I think it was 1865, you know, at the beginning he kind of ruled what we'll say like a soft touch, because you know, a lot of revolutions and reforms were going on in that country at that time period. And, you know, over the decades, it became, you know, more of a democracy. But see, King Leopold, even when he was young, when he first took the throne, he would always ask the Senate if he could go overseas to another country and take all that shit, long story short. Basically, I mean, that's all he wanted to do. He kept bringing it up. To the point where it became an obsession. And he finally got his chance. Come on, you know he gonna get his chance. He got his chance in 1866, right? He goes to the Philippines. Now, let me make sure I got this name right, because I'm gonna mess it up. Now, okay, no, I'm looking at something else. My bad, team. He went to the Philippines, and there was a queen called Isabella II of Spain. She was from Spain. And he tried to overtake that. But something had happened. And the queen was overthrown in 1868. So negotiations fell through. So he lost his chance there. But you know, what I said earlier, he was obsessed with going over there. So, you know, he tried to get... So when you try to... You know, when you're a savage and a psychopath, you try to justify that you're not a psychopath. So what did he do? And I think around 1878, double check me on that, around 1878, he sent two quote-unquote explorers out there, right, to check out he kept bringing up Africa, and so they went and checked out the Congo, and when they got all the information, of course, he spun it and made it seem like, oh, these two men, they went down to Africa, to the darkest areas of Africa, and they're so bold, this and that and this, and but then he never told the real reason that he wanted to go down there. He wanted to go down there to get some intel for him to make his move, to go in and do what he had to do. Okay? So he finally gets his opportunity. He finally gets his opportunity to go down to the Congo, right? So he goes down to Congo on a quote-unquote humanitarian project. That's what he told the Senate. Because the Senate, there were some crazy motherfuckers too. But the Senate, they had a little bit of sense. They weren't always about, going overseas and all this stuff, But in King Leopold said he wanted to go there and take all the resources for Belgium and for himself, so they could have all the resources before other countries started doing it. And so, he goes down there. I'm trying to remember the year. It kind of slips my mind right now. But anyway, that's not even the point. He goes down there, and see, at first, he couldn't just come in there and just do whatever he wanted. He couldn't do that because there was already a power there. And you know who that power was? I got the name for you. It's going to blow your fucking mind. It was an Arab slave trader by the name, now this name is hard to pronounce, by the name of Tipu Tip. One more time, Tipu Tip. I hope I got that name right. But anyway, and now people wonder, like Wagner, why was there an Arab in Africa? But see, there's a little thing that, your history teacher never told you, American schools don't tell you. There was a slave trade before the European slave trade, or the transatlantic slave trade. There was an Arab one that lasted 10 times longer. It was almost 2,000 years. Okay, and they basically taught the Europeans and all the other people who are in that transatlantic slave trade how to do that. So anyway, they had, Tip's, his group, he had a considerable presence around there. So at first, it's a King Leopold, he was slick. So at first, he tried to, give Tip a little bit of power and give him some money, a little bit of stuff he hadn't seen before to kind of buy his allegiance and continue doing the slave trade thing, to try to clear out the Congo land for him. And so, as Tip used his position to ramp up the slave trade, and he was transferring people from the Congo all the way to Zanzibar. Like, that's a long way. Okay? And so after a couple of years, that I don't know exactly how long that lasted, but with the Tip and King Leopold relationship, I don't know exactly how long that lasts, but eventually King Leopold turned on him, and basically there was like a mini war, and tons of bodies were dropped. There were so many bodies dropped they lost count. Put it that way. So finally, he finally took over for real. And now that's when the real savagery began. That's when King Leopold really, really got dirty. But see, but at first, before I get into that, they would have groups come from like Belgium and sometimes other European countries. They would come to the Congo in these massive hunting groups. Just as long as you could afford a hunting license, if you were somebody with an aspiration to be a hunter, all you had to do was come to the Congo, pay for a hunting license, and guess what? It was basically no rules. You could walk out to any wildlife and shoot it in the head. And, lions, giraffes, it didn't matter what was there, you could just kill it. And these groups were so savage that it was told, some of the settlers will write down that they could wipe out a whole ecosystem of animals in an area. That's how dangerous those dudes were. And so, that's a system that King Leopold set up. It was just a money grab. And it's just like there was so much unique wildlife in the Congo, but it got massively diminished at that time because of those, those hunting parties. But now, let's talk about King Leopold again. Let's talk about him specifically. Okay, now there's a big item that they went there for, and it's rubber. You don't think of rubber as big now, but back then that was the number one thing. You needed that shit. You needed that, and so to make rubber, they had to have plantations, and they didn't have a lot of room. It was hard to maintain, especially from the rainforest and all the weather, and you had to like cut down on the forest, so it was hard to maintain. So instead of doing that, instead of cutting down the forest, what King Leopold did? Come on, guys, let's take a guess. Okay, I'm gonna tell you. King Leopold, crazy ass, would go to settlers, just random settler cities that were already flattened out for him, and just basically murder everybody there. Murder everybody there, and then, put his plantations there. And if he didn't murder everybody, he would just enslave the rest to work for him. I'm gonna let that sit in you for a second. And he also established, whenever he got these slaves or whatever working for him, he established a quota system. You know how the cops have a quota system, or any salesman have a quota system. You got to meet a quota. He would put that on people, right? But this is what King Leopold would do. That's how crazy this guy was. And he actually hired multiple people to oversee these slaves. See, like each little village that he destroyed, he would turn it into, like, I guess for us to understand, he would turn it into like a county or like a mini city, and he would put somebody to oversee that city. And usually that person was an extension of him, so that person was a savage too. So we don't know these people's names, but if they came from King Leopold, they were fucking insane. Okay, so back to the quota system. He would put the quota system on these people, right? And then if you didn't meet the quota, he would cut a limb off. He would either cut your hand off or your foot off. And if you were a man and didn't meet the quota, he would cut your wife and your daughter's foot off and hand off and give it to you and make you wear it around your neck. This dude would send people out into the rainforest with nothing. No materials, no tools, no nothing to help them extract the rubber. He would just be like, go out there and do it with your hands. And if you needed to use both hands, you know what he would do? Like, most people have to use both hands to do work, right? Because that's why you have two. He would cut one of them off. Like, what? So if you had to use both hands, you had to use one. If you saw you using two, he would cut off a hand. Do you know how many people that had to be? Because that's insane. That's unreasonable as fuck. It's like, hey, I'm going to send you out here with nothing, and if you come back, I'm going to cut your hand off. If you use two hands, I'm going to cut your hand off. It's just like, it's a lose-lose situation. And like, I'm actually looking at a picture. I was looking at a picture earlier on the site I was looking on. It's a man sitting down. You know what he's sitting down staring at? He's staring at, I might put this picture up in the podcast. I mean, it's rated above R. He's sitting there. It's a father. He's sitting there staring at his 5-year-old's daughter, hand and foot. It's a picture from 1904. Like, can you even imagine that? Your son, your daughter, and his hand got cut off? Do you know what that would do to your mind? I know all y'all with kids out there. I know y'all protect y'all kids to the end. Can you imagine some shit like that happening? Man, this dude was a savage, man. Like, his system was worse. If you look up the Mongol rampage in Asia, look that up. That shit, King Leopold, when he had the Congo Free State, quote unquote, like, it was worse. It was worse than that. It was worse than the Mongol rampage in Asia. It was worse than that, and that was pretty savage. It's just like, man, like, they couldn't accurately. I think there was a census in 1924, and they couldn't really accurately guess how many people were there because some of the places were so remote. But they were thinking around 10 to 15 million. But see, in 1924, King Leopold was, I'm pretty sure he was dead. Let me double check that. Yeah, he was dead. Let me see. Yeah, because he died in 1909. So when they came here in 1924, like they couldn't guess because they feel like another 10 million were there, but they were just dead, and that place was just barren. And so he did this shit for so long that to the point where like other countries started to hear about it, and they were like there was a lot of people that were against it because I think people heard of it before, but they didn't know about the savagery that was going on, and like a lot of people when they heard about that started rallying against it. Like, and that, guess what, guys? It wasn't King Leopold. That area was the worst at the time, but there were other places in the United States, in Britain, and in the Netherlands. Oh yeah, you heard me right. I said the United States. That shit was in there too. Okay, please. Man. But yeah, anyway, let me get back into it. It got so bad that he finally had to hand it over to the Belgian government in 1908. He finally had to do it. He was like, I'm gonna do my savage shit. But then I'm gonna hand it over. I'm gonna hand it over, right to the Belgian government in 1908. Like it's nothing. Like he's just like, oh yeah, I did what I needed to do. And the Belgian government changed the name from the Congo Free State to the Belgian Congo, and they kind of instilled some. They didn't make it to where they took the quota system away. But, I mean, it was still fucked up. There was still beatings. There was still mutilation. There was still rapes. And one thing I didn't mention, I forgot to mention, that first generation, when King Leopold arrived, he beat them down so bad to the point where the next generation that came up was just savages because they had no other way. This is all they knew. And he would enlist some of the tribes, like some of these savage tribes, to go and kill other tribes and wipe people out for him. I mean, they would just send in there and do whatever they wanted. They would go into these villages, rape, kill, and whatever they do in the name of King Leopold, just because they were so mentally dead from and didn't know who they were from the savagery of a King Leopold that they would just do as he would say. And see, and saying all this makes me, when I hear somebody say, oh, the people in the Congo, they're like that for a reason, they don't know, like that makes me so angry to the max, because that's a bad person. Those people right there haven't taken the time to study history and study how things came into play and why these people are the way they are. Because I mean, there was a war in the Congo, and guess what? See, now you gonna think I'm gonna say this war was like in the 1940 or something. This war was in the 1900s. The 1900s. It was called the Great African War. It swept through the Congo during the 1900s, and this war killed about 6 million people. 6 million people. I don't know if they were all Congolese people, but there was a lot of people. It was the biggest bloodletting since World War II. That's saying a lot right there. That is saying a lot. Since World War II? World War II was crazy, and this was the biggest one next to it. And that just shows, and you can look at the state of it now. I mean, well, that Pacific War was trying to overthrow a bloodthirsty dictator, and they didn't overthrow him till 1997. Okay, 1997. I was still a kid. That's crazy. That shit was going on when I was a kid, and I didn't even fucking know about it. Isn't that crazy? That crazy savage shit was going on. You probably saw a little insert on it on the news. Oh yeah, look at these crazy niggas. Not knowing what the factors that go into play. And now you see that the people in Congo, they haven't recovered. I mean, you can look at the state now. Desperate poverty, desperate living. It has the most rich resources on the planet Earth, but they can't even get clean water. Wrap your mind around that. You would expect a society like the Congo that is now, you would expect that to be like a country that recovered from like a nuclear bomb or some shit. That's what you would expect to be. No, it's not like that. This is worse. It's worse than ever. And King Leopold had a huge hand in this. He had a huge hand because it's like, in a way, he taught savagery. He taught it to him. And like, I'm sitting here looking at the photo I brought up earlier about the father looking at his daughter's severed foot and arm, thinking, did he survive? Did he survive? I highly doubt it. You know, I highly doubt it. And for anybody listening to this, if you haven't read the Soliloquies of King Leopold by Mark Twain, let me make sure I got that name right, man. Let me make sure. No, it's called King Leopold Soliloquy by Mark Twain. Look it up. You would see, I was just so in shock at how high of a person this guy thought he was. He thought he was doing God's work. Like, he thought he was on that Jesus shit. Like, I'm like, I remember when I first read this, I was just like, I don't even remember where I was, but I was stunned. I was like, and I know Mark Twain had to be like, yo, this motherfucker is crazy. So yeah, please read about that. Make sure you talk about this dude, because the same things are happening now. We're repeating the same thing. It's just like, we keep doing the same thing over and over. Like, why are we sitting here? King Leopold's whole thing is he was trying to justify genocide. Why are we sitting here in 2017 still doing this shit? Is my question. Why are we in 2017 still trying to justify genocide? It's genocide. You can't get around that. Some of these things that's going on. And I'm not just talking about, see, everybody's thinking Pacific things. I'm talking about everything combined together is genocide around the whole planet. And it's just like, we can't keep sitting back and justifying these things, man. We gotta stand up, because we don't want some shit. We don't want another dude like this to come around. We don't want to see that again. We don't want to see a Hitler again. We don't want to see a Stalin again. We don't want to see a Mussolini again. We don't want to see all these savage, crazy, no mentality people, dictators popping up all over Africa and all over the South America. We don't want to see that no more. So we need to nip this in the bud. We need to call out tyranny when we see it. Well, that's what we need to do, man. Because I'm tired of reading stories about these, man. Can you imagine being in that? Can you imagine? That will probably be the scariest time. That is hell on earth. That is hell on earth. Man, got a little hype there, guys. Got a little hype there, but I have to bring the information to the people, man. I had to bring the information to the people. Until we meet again, I want to give you a little preview of my next episode, though. I'm going to talk about not the Constitution, the monuments being torn down, like Confederate monuments being torn down, and why I think it's a good thing. Why do I think it's a good thing? That's probably what my next episode will be about. But who knows? I may talk about something else. I may be feeling a little sporty. You know what I'm saying? I may be feeling a little sporty. I'm feeling a little sporty. Until we meet again.